So welcome to the show. Welcome to the weekly shred. It is a Thursday afternoon, man. I really hope you guys are doing pretty well out there. I hope you guys are out there living your best life on this Thursday afternoon. I am your host. I am your tour guide, Jim Schultz, and I really appreciate you guys for being with me here today with F Cubed. We've got a good one on tap for y'all today. We're going to talk about the next 57 weeks of my training. And so I spent a couple of minutes, spent maybe a couple of hours, and I mapped out what the next year plus is going to look like for me from a training standpoint. So my hope is that by kind of working through this, it'll give you guys some ideas and some insights that you can apply to your own training. And so if you guys want to hit me with a like to kick this video off, that would be much, much appreciated. Help push this thing through the old YouTube algorithm. If you are brand new to the Weekly Shred, hey, thank you for popping in with us here today. Let me know in the chat box. I really want to know as we get rolling today, what is your training goal right now? What is your training goal for the next 57 weeks? I would really, really love to know that. So hit me up in the chat box and we'll get this discussion going. So, this is it, man. We've got about 4 or 5 weeks to go in 2020, and then we'll be hitting up 2021, kind of hitting the ground running or hitting the ground, kind of sleepwalking. Might be a little bit better way to say that. But been thinking a lot about what my training is going to look like for the next year. Like, how am I going to approach 2021? From a competitive standpoint, as a bodybuilder, normally I've been running kind of an every other year cycle, right? And so I would compete 1 year, then I would take the next year off. Then I would compete 1 year, then I would take the next year off. That's effectively what I've done for the last 4 or 5 years. And that in and of itself has been kind of new for me from a competitive standpoint. I used to just kind of compete all the time early on in my career, and I never did very well. I was basically just chasing my tail for most of the time. And then, I got married and started, having babies and stuff. And I was like, man, I got other things in my life that I kind of want to do. I've got other things in my life that are kind of important to me too. So I was like, maybe we don't compete every year. Maybe we kind of earmark certain years to not compete at all. And I've done that for the last 4 or 5 years. And, I've been fortunate enough to see my performance increase and my placings at shows increase. So I was on stage in 2017. I took 2018 off. I trained for the stage in 2019. And then at the last second, I had to withdraw from the show that I was slated to do because my son got really sick. And there was no way that I could step on stage with him in the spot and in the shape that he was in. So I didn't compete. But I had Dream 10 on, like I was carb loaded, like I did everything up until the final moments before getting on stage. And then obviously took 2020 off. So I would be slated to take the stage again next year. But I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that because this last year, guys, I don't even need to say this, man. It has basically been the best possible year that you could think of. So I thought, why ruin this perfectly done up year that is 2020 by having a competitive season in 2021, which is clearly not fun at all. So I thought, let's push that out another year. Let's do 2021 as, what was supposed to be, the artist formerly known as 2020. And then we'll look to take the stage in 2022. So this is kind of, an overview of how I'm viewing my training for the next, 56, 57 weeks. Let me know. Let me know what you guys think about that. Let me know what your training looks like in the chat box or in the comments down below if you are watching this on the replay. So what I want to do now, I'm going to bring up the little graphic that I created for us here today. So this is going to kind of walk through what I'm thinking in terms of my training for the next 57 weeks. So here she is. So let's kind of, let's work through everything that we see here on this slide. So it's a lot, right? So there's a ton of things going on here on this slide. So the first thing that I want to bring up is let's focus on those top 2 lines that you see up there. So number 1, in my microcycle. So a microcycle is just a week, right? Most people define a microcycle in the bodybuilding world as, a 1 week span of time. So this is just your Monday through Sunday kind of training split. My focus is going to be basically what it's been for most of my training career, right? Like I'm a big fan of, just a real quick tangent. When I find something that I like, I tend to stick with it. Like when I find something that's been working for me, I tend to run that thing down to the ground. And so that's why I tell Autumn all the time. My wife, I'm like, you're safe. Right? Like, yeah, we've only been in this for 11 years, but I don't think that I'm going to be getting rid of you anytime soon because I've kind of grown a little bit of an affinity towards you. 11 years later, I think that's reasonable. So the prospect of our staying together, happily married, is very, very strong, very, very high. Well, I think of my training in the same regard, right? Like, so from a microcycle standpoint, I'm going to have a power hypertrophy focus with my training. I feel like that gives me the best of both worlds. I feel like I'm able to, focus on my strength on the power days and focus on the hypertrophy, which is my number one objective as a bodybuilder. I can focus on the hypertrophy in the second half of the week. But the power ends up giving me better long-term results for the hypertrophy, so they kind of work together, in both the short-term and the long-term. So that's kind of what I mean when I say a power hypertrophy focus. My muscular priorities are going to be chest, delts, and quads. So I am at a point in my career where, I could keep just blasting away at like everything, the same way. Just keep kind of blasting away at everything with, uniform volume and uniform intensity and all that kind of stuff. But, the last, I would say, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years, I really started to specialize on certain body parts. And so about 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, I realized, much to my chagrin, that my lats were A, a weak point, and B, they were not even. They were uneven. Like I just looked like one of these cats where I was just like, man, like, dude, what is this guy doing? Like, why are his lats uneven? Well, my lats were uneven. And the reason why my lats were uneven was because my deadlifts were the main culprit. And the reason why, not to get off on a huge tangent, but it's somewhat relevant at least. When you do a mixed grip deadlift, right? Like you do one hand open and one hand closed. You have kind of the power hand and the non-power hand. Theoretically, you'll always flip, right? Like theoretically, you do one set one way, you do one set the other way, and you get even workload on both. But I noticed, as many, deadlifters notice, that I was much stronger with my right hand open. Now, maybe that's because I'm right-handed. It probably is. But with my right hand open, I was much stronger. So naturally, when I'm in the gym and I'm wanting to hit some PRs, when I'm in the gym and I'm wanting to get some work done, I'm like, well, I'm going right hand open. I'm not going left hand open, right? Like I'm not a chump, right? Like I want to actually do something today. So by doing that, it was putting greater emphasis on I can't even remember now. I think it was actually my right lat that was lagging behind. So for whatever reason, my lats were, getting an unbalanced treatment from, other things, I think, but mostly my deadlifts. And so I switched to a double overhand grip. And I also started to prioritize my lats. I also started to kind of build up that weak spot. And it actually turned into, I wouldn't call them a strength necessarily, but they can hold their own now. Like my back double bicep, my back lat spread actually looks reasonably solid. And so I was like, wow, that actually worked. So 5 or 6 years ago, I prioritized my lats. Then 3 or 4 years ago, especially in the 2017 season, I wanted to prioritize my triceps. And so I really gave my triceps just a steady bombing and blasting, week in and week out, doing all kinds of different things, compound movements, isolation movements, blood flow restriction, all that stuff. And still, of course, do blood flow restriction because it's amazing. But my triceps came up too. And so I was like, all right, like this works. Like, not that I was super surprised that it would work, but it's always cool to have something, work for you firsthand that you've seen or heard about working for other people. And so my lats came up, my triceps came up. So now I'm like, all right, let me move away from lats and triceps, of course, and let me go ahead. Let's focus on my chest, my delts, and my quads. I would say that the weakest body part on my physique right now is without question my chest. Without question, my chest is the weakest body part that I possess. And so it needs the most amount of work. And so I am going to, work really hard and diligently at bringing my chest up. Delts, delts are it's one of those things that, I mean, can you really have, too big of delts? Like, I guess you can. They can overpower your chest and all of that, but it's like, man, from an X frame, from a width through the shoulder girdle standpoint, can you really have your delts be too wide? Like, I don't think so, man. Right? So I'm like, yeah, let's go ahead and let's bring up my delts. And then my quads are probably number 3 because my legs are pretty solid. My legs can definitely hold their own, and especially when I get lean enough, they look decent. I would actually prefer to prioritize my hamstrings, but the problem is my right hamstring has been injured for a few years, and I've worked hard to bring it back. Probably haven't worked hard enough actually to bring it back to where it should be, but it's feeling pretty good these days. I don't know if it's ready for a specialization program. I don't know if it's ready for, just a heavy dose of bombing and blasting. So we're probably going to hold off on that and just flip it around and see if we can improve the quads a little bit, because my legs are decent, my legs are solid, but the sweep, my quad sweep actually is not as strong as I would like it to be. My quad sweep and then my inner quads are a little bit lacking as well. So these are some things that I'm going to work on. From a mesocycle standpoint, I'm going to really work hard on bringing up my strength in the main lifts, mainly my squat and my bench press. I feel like squat is the panacea for all things leg development. Like it is the thing that you need to focus on if you're looking to improve your legs. And I don't care what you're looking to improve. It could be your quads, it could be your glutes, it could be your hamstrings. I don't really care. I really think that every program needs to start off with some variation of a squat. Now, you can do different variations of squats, right? You can do back squats, you can do, safety squats, which is what I'm working on right now. You can do swing squats, you can do hack squats, you can do goblet squats, you can do front squats, you can do whatever it is you want to do. But I think a squatting motion should command the lion's share of your attention when it comes to your leg program. So squats and then bench press. I'm gonna work really hard on my bench press. Honestly, I don't think bench is the greatest chest developer, and so I'm not gonna be crazy about this, right? I'm not gonna just spend 15 or 57 weeks, 15 months, which isn't 57 weeks, but either way, I'm not gonna spend a lot of time just hammering away at my bench press with no results. Like, I really want to improve my bench press just to be stronger on the bench. My bench has always been extremely weak. And so since I now have a nice setup here in the garage with a rack and chains and bands and all that stuff, Texas power bar, like we're all set and ready to go. I'm like, yeah, we'll do a little something in it. Let's see if we can improve the bench, because it's rare that I see somebody with a strong bench that doesn't also have a pretty well developed chest. And I don't think that's a coincidence. Right? Like, I think it might be more than just correlation. I think there actually might be a little causation there. And so I'm going to test out that hypothesis with some dedicated bench work, but I'm certainly not going to ignore, dumbbell work and other exercises and, and things of that nature. So, yeah, so strength in the main lifts. And then I'm going to put a heavy emphasis on recovery. I'm going to put a much heavier emphasis on recovery than I ever really have. And what I mean by that is this: I'm going to really pay attention to, how I am handling my workloads, how I'm handling my intensities, how things are just kind of shaking out for me. I'll be 40 in May, so I'll be 40 next year as I'm working through this macro cycle. I'm just going to be really aware, and I train 4 to 5 days a week right now. I've been training 5 days a week for a really long time. But if I need to switch to 4 days a week, I'll do it. If I need to switch to 4 days a week, I will absolutely do it. Like, I'm not going to, let my ego get in the way. If I need that extra day of rest and recovery, and it leads to more productivity in the gym in the 4 days that I'm in there, then we'll do it. We'll absolutely do it. And so there you go. We got Ross. Ross is about to start a squat workout right now. That a boy. You get some work done, Ross. You get it done, man. You safety squat, you back squat, you front squat. Maybe do a tricep with all three. Like, I absolutely love it, dude. That's good stuff. Maybe this will kind of fire you up a little bit. I mean, I would probably go with like Rage Against the Machine or Alice in Chains, but maybe the weekly shred is your jam. I don't know. That, everybody's got a different thing that gets them fired up. So all right. So those are kind of the microcycle and mesocycle approaches that I'm taking to my training. Let's work through the little, it's not really a calendar. It's more of a timeline that I've created on the bottom there. And so Moving from left to right, obviously, because we're, regular normal people. If we look at the end of the year for 20, we got about 4 or 5 weeks to go in the year. And so I'm just going to clean up. I'm just going to clean some things up in this phase, and, I'm not going to lie. I've been living my best life. I've been living my best quarantine life for the last 7, 8, 9 months, and I've gotten a little soft. I've gotten a little softer than I would like to be. And so I've been kind of hanging out between 210 and 215, which is a little bit heavier than where I normally carry my off-season weight. And this is where I used to carry, even heavier off-season weight way back in the day. But for the last 5, 6 years, I'm usually lighter than this. And so I was like, all right, Jim, like let's start to get a little bit more serious now. You're down in Florida where freedom is actually appreciated, so that's good. Like you're down in Florida, let's go ahead. Let's clean some things up. Let's see if we can't take the end of the year and let's just clean things up down to about, 200-ish, right? Maybe we float down into the high 190s. That would be great. And what's funny about this is, and this will apply to anyone out there that might be watching or listening or whatever. And by the way, if you guys are watching and listening and you haven't done so already, hey, hit me with that subscribe button and make sure to ring the bell so you are notified whenever we go live, because these subscriptions don't really do very much unless you hit that bell and then when we're about to do some stuff. So that would be awesome. But if you've got a ways to go, right? Like if you've got more than 25, 35 pounds to lose, right? The first 10 or 12 pounds should be very, very easy. The first 10 or 12 pounds should not be difficult at all. It should require very little effort on your part. And I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that to try to sell you my super secret system or do anything like that. It's just the truth. It should be very, very, very easy. All it's going to take is a little bit of intentionality and a whole lot of consistency. That's all you need. It shouldn't be drastic. It shouldn't be difficult. It should just be like, hey, rather than having 2 slices of pumpkin pie, maybe I should only have 1. Maybe I should only have like 1 1/3. Right? Maybe I should just throttle this back just a little bit. I mean, this is literally exactly what I'm doing. Right? Like I was 215, like 214.8 about a week ago, and I'm already down under 212. And all I've done is I've just started to be more intentional about things. I have an eye on my macros, and really, instead of having 2 slices of pumpkin pie, I'm having like 1 slice of pumpkin pie. And so it's really not that difficult, and it won't be for you either. It just takes a little bit of intentionality. So for the rest of the year, I'm just looking to kind of clean some things up. I should land around 200, maybe a little bit under 200 without a ton of effort on my part. I'm not doing a ton of cardio. I'm not, taking my carbs down to 0. I'm not doing any of that stuff. I'm just cleaning some things up. Then for next year, to kick off next year, I'm really fired up about this. I'm fired up about this because, guys, I have never done this before, and I am embarrassed to admit this publicly here on the Shred. For the 9.5 people that are going to watch, I am very, very ashamed that this is true. But I have never taken an extended period of time, more than a couple of months, and dedicated it to actually building up my physique. To actually, being at maintenance calories or maybe in a slight surplus and actually focusing on the building phase of bodybuilding. I've spent most of my career, and I was a naturally big kid. I mean, I've shared this story many, many times, right? But naturally, I'm very, very big. Naturally, my body wants to carry a lot of body fat. So I gravitate more towards, the Shredsville side of things. I gravitate more towards the cutting and the leaning up side of bodybuilding. I haven't really spent a ton of time focusing on performance when I have not been in a caloric deficit. And this will be brand new for me, man. I wish I could say that, having competed for 20 years, I have been better about this, but it would not be the truth. And I am not going to tell y'all something that I know to be absolutely false or an absolute falsehood. Either one of those would work. So I'm pumped to actually do this. I'm pumped to actually follow through on something I've been wanting to do for a very long time. So pretty much all of 2021, the entire year, all 12 months, the whole macro cycle. Usually a macro cycle is a 12-month period of time. The whole macro cycle is going to be focused on performance, all of it. It's all going to be focused on kind of the micro and the meso cycle guidelines or blueprints that I have above, where the priority is going to be chest and delts and quads. I didn't want to get in the weeds with how, specifically I'm going to prioritize those things. Maybe we can talk about that on another show. Maybe we'll talk about it next week. I don't know. But I just wanted to, kind of lay the foundation so you guys know what I'm thinking. And maybe it can kind of, spur you guys on to think about, hey, what should I be focused on? What should I prioritize for the next, micro cycle, meso cycle, macro cycle? I'm going to focus on performance the entire year. The only thing that I'm going to do, and I'm going to draw on my experience from 2017 to guide me in this way. Some point middle of the year, if I had to guess, it'll probably be April, May. I probably don't want to go past June, so it'll probably be April or May. I'm going to do like a I'm going to do like a 3 to 5 week mini cut. I'm going to do like a 3 to 5 week mini cut, right? My hope is, my goal is, for the first half of the year, while I'm focusing on performance, I want to keep my body weight pretty steady. It might go up a little bit, it's possible, right? But I want to keep it between 195 and 200. Maybe like the low 200s, 201, 202 would be fine. Then I'm going to do a mini cut to try to bring my body weight down into the low 190s. In a perfect world, the high 180s. But I know how this stuff works, and so 193, 194 might have to be a little bit more realistic. What's really cool about that level for me is, so what's really cool about both of these levels. So 195 to 200, and I'll kind of hop on the soapbox for this one. 195 to 200, this is where I've carried my off-season weight most of the time for the last 5 or 6 years. So I'm very comfortable at that level. I don't feel like I'm super hungry. I don't feel like I'm super tired. It shouldn't be that difficult for me to get down there and stay down there. That's kind of where my body wants to be naturally. That's, not in that lockdown life, not in that, quarantine best life, just under normal circumstances. But at 193, 190, that's actually where I feel the best, and that's where I perform the best, right? I may look a lot better, in the 170s and the 160s, but I don't feel that amazing. But 193, 190, 188, man, that's where I always feel really, really good. So I would be very excited for the second half of next year, for kind of my second block of performance, to be around that body weight. That would really be super awesome for me because I know that I'm going to feel really, really good. But the other side of that is I had by far and away my best bodybuilding season ever in 2017. This is when I was lucky enough to win the novice title in that show, and I took fourth place in that show in my open class to turn pro. There were 13 guys. We were split into 2 classes, Class A and Class B, and I took 4th out of 7 in my class. But the guy that I actually beat in the novice class took 2nd out of 7 in his class. And so, he took 2nd out of 6 in his class, not 2nd out of 7. So I was probably like 5th out of 13 or 4th out of 13, however that shakes out, right? So, I mean, I had ways to go to turn pro, but closer than I've ever been. Well, in 2017, one of the things that I did was I actually got my body weight down to about 188 before I started my official prep for that show. And it's no surprise, it's no coincidence that was my best showing ever. Even though in 2019, I actually got leaner, even though in 2019, when I never actually took the stage, but I was ready to take the stage, my body weight was lower. I actually got down to 167 in 2019, and I only got down to 168 in 2017. I looked a lot better in 2017. Now, in both situations, I still need to get leaner yet to get to the level that I want to get to, but I think that the shape of my body, the muscularity that I was able to keep by starting at a lower body weight and not having to be as drastic and go as quickly, I think that really paid big dividends for me in 2017. So I would like to duplicate that, right? I want to replicate that experience in 2021. So while I'm focusing on my performance for the second half of the year, I'd like my body weight to be around 188 to 192, 193. And so then when 2022 kicks off, and we'll kind of wrap up the shred here today with this, as I kind of said that kind of weird. We'll wrap up the shred today with this. That sounded a little bit more normal. 2022 kicks off. My thinking is I'm pretty much going to spend the whole year. The whole year is going to be a competitive season for me. It's probably going to be something where, I'd spend the first 6 to 8 months getting ready for the stage to, bring my body weight down from, if I start at 190, if I had to guess, just based on some feedback that I've gotten from some people that I really, really respect, that have seen my physique at 166, 167, 168. I probably need to be 158 to 160 to be able to do what I want to do, which is to earn my pro card and then also compete in a pro show and be competitive. Like that would be really awesome. Eventually, I want to win a pro show, but that may or may not happen in 2022. We'll just have to wait and see. The good thing is I'll be 41, so I'll be able to do all the Masters divisions and beat up on all them old guys, which is going to be awesome. But anyway, that's what I'm thinking for 2022. I spend the first 6 to 8 months and kind of get ready for the stage, and then I want to compete for like 2 to 4 months. So I don't want to do just a one and done type deal. Like in 2017, I did 2 shows. It was great. In 2019, I was actually only going to do 1 show because I kept pushing my schedule back because I was lollygagging and not getting ready in time, and I was just a bonehead and a doofus. And so I'm going to try to avoid being boneheaded or doofus-headed in 2022. And so if I can actually do what I'm thinking about doing, I should be ready around, July or August. And then I can compete late summer and into the fall. And then, probably shut it down around the holidays, which, that just makes sense for all the reasons that are also referred to as pumpkin pie that we referenced earlier. And so this is kind of what I'm thinking, guys. Like this is kind of what I've got slated for the next year. If you guys hung with us for the entire show today, like you guys are amazing. Like you guys are super amazing. And whether you watched it live or you watched it on the replay, like I really, really appreciate you. I appreciate you guys very much. And Jimmy James pops in, says, that's a great goal. Hey, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you very much. Yeah, I've spent a lot of time thinking about it, and it's a little bit, I really wanted next year to be a competitive year, and it could be. Like I could go ahead and turn next year into a competitive year, but I know how that story ends. I've done it so many times before. I'm not in a great position to start a prep right now. I don't even think I'm in a good position mentally to start a prep right now. I'm definitely not in a good position physically. And so let me be a little patient, right? I mean, this is something that I mean, James, you know this. I mean, this is something that I communicate to, all of the athletes inside of Full Throttle and just, everybody that asks my opinion. I'm like, hey, if you want to do this right, if you want to do this in a sustainable way, you got to slow it down, man. You got to slow it all down. And so I need to take my own advice. I mean, I'm human. I'm not a robot, just like everybody else. And so this year hasn't played out exactly like I would have liked it to have played out. It is encouraging, though, that I'm 210 to 215, not 225 to 235, which is where I spent most of my, 20s and early 30s. And so that's encouraging, but we're still not in a great spot to start a prep. So I'm going to take next year and I'm going to clean that up, and I'm going to focus on performance, see if we can't build up the chest and the delts and the quads a little bit and make some improvements. And then, we'll be ready to go in 2022. So I really hope you guys got a little bit of something from this. I hope it gave you guys some insights into your own training, maybe gave you some ideas, maybe, triggered some questions and some, some thoughts and some whatevers that can help you apply this to your own training. If I can ever help in any way, guys, just reach out to me, man. You can hit me up in the comments below this video. You can always hit me up on social media. I'm just at jschultzf3 pretty much across the board. If you guys want to hit me with a like on your way out, that would help a ton. If you guys want to subscribe, if you are brand new to the channel, that would help me a double ton. And then if you want to go for the trifecta, share this video with somebody else. That would really help a lot. Just text the link straight to it to, one of your friends or one of your enemies. It's not going to matter to me. The YouTube algorithm will treat them the same. And so that would be really, really awesome. And so I hope you guys have a great Thursday afternoon. We'll be back next week, of course. And until then, you guys have a great day. Have a great night, and we'll see you then.